So Lane, such a pleasure to meet you. I am excited. I don't know if you know, but I have scanned over 300 NFL players.
Yeah, actually, one of my ex-teammates went to this or did your clinic and urged me to go. So I'm been very interested for a long time.
That's awesome. Who is that?
Evan Mathis.
That's great.
Yeah, Evan Mathis.
So I have read your history and I looked at your scans and I have an idea. But I want to hear from you, your goals. What would make this really great for you?
My anxiety really picked up around 18, 19 years old. That was when I was entering junior college. But that's when I noticed my anxiety really kicking in. And that was really after 4 competitive years of football and cell phones being introduced into my life, compared to not having a cell phone. And then you get into college, you have an iPhone. So I feel like just a lot of things have changed. And I feel like it changes your brain. And for me, this whole thing is about, I think it'd be very naive to think that after years of football, it doesn't have damaging effects on your brain. I believe it does. I feel like short-term memory loss is pretty common amongst a lot of teammates that I talk to or retired players. I feel like I may have lost some of that. But really, it's just the anxiety. I feel like I've had that for a while. And although I've been very successful at what I've done, it's always been a burden to me. A blessing in some cases, because I believe the OCD, the anxiety, urges me to be the person I am in my profession. But at the same time, it has a lot of downsides to it. But I believe, my whole goal is to get my brain health together. I've read or heard Joe Namath talking about his success with the hyperbaric chambers. And I don't know I believe he probably got a SPECT scan done.
He did.
But I feel like, even though the game is safer than what it was back then, it's still, you're playing from age of 14, 15, contact sport. And so it is what it is.
So we do a study called SPECT, and SPECT looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. And it basically shows us 3 things: good activity, too little, or too much. And then my job is to balance it. And if it's working too hard, we want to calm it down. If it's not working hard enough, I want to stimulate it. I'm a double board certified psychiatrist and I'm really good with medication, but it's just never the first thing I think about. Your brain is an organ, like your heart is an organ. And if I can get your brain super healthy, you're likely to be happier.
Yes.
That makes sense. So the image on the left looks at the outside surface, and it should just be full, even, and symmetrical. The top left image, we're looking underneath the brain. So the top is the front, the bottom is the back. These big guys here are your temporal lobes, really important for memory. We're looking from one side, then the other, and this view is down from the top. Color doesn't matter, it's the shape we're looking at. The image is on the right, the color does matter. Blue is average activity. Red and white are the most active parts of the brain. And it should be really active in the back. This is your cerebellum. It's involved in coordination, but also thought coordination, how quickly you can switch tasks and process new information. So really important. When we look at your scan, compared to my NFL scans, you have a great brain. So I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it's a little bumpy.
The right front, that's what you're talking about, the little hole there. It's interesting because I play right tackle, so a lot of my hits is coming from a defensive end. It's hitting me on my right side of my body, so that kind of makes sense,
And you've had a couple of concussions, right?
Yes, a couple.
Yeah, but
a good thing with tackle is that I use a lot more of hands than say a center or a guard who's like a lot in pretty close proximity. Whereas a tackle, I have a lot of space and I'm playing a lot of basketball majority of the time until a guy makes contact. So I think it may be less severe than maybe a linebacker or a center, or that would be interesting to be a part of your study.
Well, we looked at damage by position, and offensive line had the worst. But like you just said, guards and centers may be worse because they have closer contact.
Yes.
Linebackers were second.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because it's Joe Louis, the famous boxer, said it's not the big hits that cause dementia. It's the thousands of little hits.
Yeah.
And so many football players are worried about CTE and they're hopeless. And I think it's just the wrong narrative. If you and I like each other and you know me a long time, you're not going to get CTE. You're going to love and take care of your brain so that we can repair the damage. A lot of CTE comes from the damage plus all the other bad things they do. Now, how I make these pictures is I tell the computer I want to see a certain level of brain activity. So I set the threshold at 55. That means I'm looking at the top 45% of brain activity. Anything below that shows up as a hole or a dent. Anything below that is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Now I want you to watch. This will tell us how much better it can be if you do what I say. So it could just be normal. You do not have any permanent damage.
Excellent. That's it's great news.
So again, blue is average activity, red is the top 15%, white is the top 8%. And if you look at it, it looks sort of like a diamond pattern.
Yeah.
And whenever I see this, so the obsessiveness is probably your cingulate gyrus right here at the top. It's the brain's gear shifter. It allows you to go from thought to thought, move from idea to idea, be flexible, go with the flow. And then your anxiety centers are here and they're up. And when I connect these dots, it looks like a diamond. And that often goes with past emotional trauma. And so I want to talk about that. But before we do, now we're looking at it from the side. Do you see this big white area?
Yes.
That's an area called the posterior, this just means toward the back, cingulate gyrus. And yours is really busy, which means you have a lot of chatter in your head. I want you to give your mind a name. And I know it sounds silly, but if you give your mind...
Tasmanian devil.
I'm sorry?
The Tasmanian devil. I said the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. So that's actually a good name. So we'll call him Taz. And we need to separate you from your mind. Now, when I see this trauma pattern, emotional trauma pattern, what comes up for you?
My parents divorced when I was 5. So my dad, he was around, just not as much. I spent a lot more time with my mom. I think a lot of my trauma really came from my self-expectations, and really I had a hard coach on me my freshman year, or really junior college, and my freshman year of college at Oklahoma, to where I was really, I was coming from a very small town. I graduated with 33, and now I'm going to, a top 5, a power school, and it threw me for a loop both years. So really a lot of trauma from my, when I was 18 to 20 was probably the most severe as far as, that thing is always stuck with me. Intense workouts, strength and conditioning, and then just the coaching, I guess, the coaches.
Do you know who Marvin Fleming is?
Marvin Fleming?
He played he was a tight end for 12 years. He actually played in 5 Super Bowls, including
5?
The Miami Dolphins perfect team.
So in 72?
72.
So back in the day, well, their helmets back then were totally trash.
So, but this was his brain before, and that was it after.
Whoa.
So before.
It's a huge difference.
After. But look at where he's starting before compared to you.
Yeah, it's not even night and day.
So for you, I would just be so grateful that you've done really good at taking care of your health, and you got, your right prefrontal cortex is hurt, but can be normal, can be super healthy.
So I actually do a thing, it's called O-line Masterminds, but it's basically a lot of the NFL, a lot of college players go to. It's like a summit in Dallas every year. We talk ball, we talk training, we talk a lot of things. But one thing I would like to talk to him about is maybe my experience with this, SPECT scans, seeing you, and maybe urging him to get checked out, to be proactive about, football and being a better player, to be ultimately a better person and be more educated on the matter, which I feel like a lot is we're not. You have to, kind of find it on your own.
Well, by you coming out and talking about it, it helps normalize it.
Yeah.
And because you're normal, Lane.
Mm.
I mean, you're above average in so many ways. And, 51% of the US population has had a mental health challenge at some point in their life. It's more normal to have a problem than not to have a problem. And it's the smart person who gets help, not the weak person. The weak person denies it and then ends up, falling off a cliff, failing.
Yeah.
If you just think of a business, if a business was having trouble and the owner denied they were having trouble, they go bankrupt.
Yeah.
But by admitting, it's like, okay, help me.
It's empowering.
It's empowering.
That sounds very good. Yeah, I'm so glad that this happened. And, I was thinking about doing this for years. I just never got on it, kind of just putting it to the side. But yeah, this has been very cool. And I'm very, very excited about what's to come. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, you're welcome. It was a joy to meet you, and I'm looking forward to you feeling better.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.